Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification Training Class. You can be seated if you're standing. And those that are tuning in on the internet, on the official Peaceful Solution Facebook page, go ahead and, if you want to follow along in the book, go ahead and click at the top. We have the acceptance unit there. You should see the prompt to click for the manual, the teacher's manual, so you can follow along with us. So tonight, I'm going to pick up where I left off last class on page 94. We're talking about, of course, purpose, having purpose in life. The chapter is called There's a Purpose to It All. It's chapter 5. And I just want to do, let's quickly go to LP5D one more time, just to get your mind on what we're talking about here. It says, and I'm at the bottom paragraph because I've already read this a couple times, but I want to just refresh our minds. It says, tell students that some people determine their purpose in life while they're quite young. For others, it takes longer. Emphasize that until they determine their specific purpose, they need to continue developing a positive character and making right choices. Have students read Just So You Know section on page 94 in their handbooks. Okay, so that's where we left off on page 94, but I want to just quickly look on page 92 about where we started on determining your purpose. And everybody at some point in their life starts to wonder, some people when they're a little older, what am I doing here? You know, what do I want to be? What do I want to do with my life? Okay? And like it says, sometimes you're quite a lot older when, you know, your purpose, what you're doing here comes to your mind and you actually understand what you want to do. I told you it was in my late 30s when I found out I wanted to teach the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. But I also needed to be educated. You know, if you want to teach something, you got to know your material. You got to know your subject, and not just know it, you know, from the standpoint of, you know, book knowledge, but also trying to apply it in our lives. You know, testing these principles of the Peaceful Solution to see if they actually work, and they do. You know, I found out they do, and but it takes the application, and that's the hardest thing with anything. It's the applying what you learn, you know, the applying. And like the book said, we talked about last class, it's not just classroom knowledge, you know, it's also getting out there and getting your feet wet, so to speak. It's one thing to learn how to do a trade, but then, you know, getting out there and getting your hands on the tools and actually, you know, working and practicing, that's what's also necessary, okay? But we also need this knowledge, because knowledge is power, as we've learned in the Peaceful Solution. Now, the second paragraph on page 92 says, time, education, and determination can answer your question about what your purpose is. Meanwhile, understand that having purpose in life doesn't necessarily mean changing world events or becoming rich and famous, as we talked about. You know, anybody can become famous nowadays for a whole myriad of foolishness, you know. But the kind of person we should want to be, if we want to be famous, we should want to be famous for treating others with respect, care, consideration, concern, training others to do the same, just so we can have a better world, you know, without all the sicknesses and diseases and war and fighting that we see today. You know, and even the disrespect for the environment, you know, the pollution and everything else we see. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to page 94 where we left off in the middle of the paragraph. We also talked a little bit about, you know, there's different things you might want to do. You know, you might want to, stop the abuse of animals. You might want to, you know, help the environment. You might want to be a social worker, etc. You know, there's a whole vast array of things you can want to do, purposes in life. And at the top of the page 92, let's go ahead and start there. It says, if you're like most people, today you want to stop the abuse of animals, and tomorrow you want to end starvation and provide homes for the homeless. As you grow, you're going to have a variety of influences that could affect what you hope to do with your life. Remember, influences can be a book, it could be something you read, it could be a person, it could be a documentary you see. Something can influence you where you start to understand what you actually want to do with your life. And you might actually already be on a certain path thinking that you already know what you want to do, but then you talk to somebody and, what they say interests you so much that you think, you know what? I think that's what I want to do. I'm gonna scrap what I was doing here, and here's what I really want to do. It could change, so be ready for that. So based on the information you receive, you think, hey, that sounds pretty neat. I think I'd like to do that type of work. Your purpose becomes helping people as a social worker and making a difference in the lives of many. And that's really what you are as a Peaceful Solution instructor. You're a social worker. But remember, we talked about last class, you have to be trained to be a social worker. They ain't just going to let anybody train someone in the skill of life, how to behave, conduct yourself without having the knowledge yourself and then the application of the knowledge yourself. Because the best teachers are those that practice what they learn in the Peaceful Solution. Okay, those are the best teachers. And it says, just by speaking with one person about a subject, the whole focus of your life can change. So you must be careful who you get advice from and not be too quick to obligate yourself until you get all the facts. Y'all remember what character trait that is? It's called educated, right? Getting all the facts. Because a lot of people have joined certain organizations, certain groups, or joined a certain ideology that they found out later was totally off the track. Like that derailed train we saw, it's like the idea was actually a falsehood. It wasn't, it was something that was negative. So we better, if we want to get involved with anything, we better make sure we study it, look behind it, get all the information we can before we decide to put our whole, and that's what you should do when you join, any organization, you should put your whole being into that organization. Okay? Even if it means working overtime, you should, because remember, in the Peaceful Solution, we've already discussed, we're not here making money, but some organizations, they do make money, and if you bite the hand that feeds you, so to speak, by not be willing to put in, the time and effort that's needed to keep that organization going, you might be cutting your nose off to spite your face, as they say. Biting the hand that feeds you. Might not have a job very long, right? Here you'll have job security. Don't worry, it'll never stop. Okay, that's a great thing about not making any money too, right? You don't have to worry about when's I hope that all that money's going to come in so we can keep teaching the Peaceful Solution. No, we've been doing it all along without. Everybody volunteers. You see Chris, you see Katan, you see David. Everybody in this organization, they give of their own time and their own resources to get this message out to the people. Okay? And that's the way it should be, People should have been taught this moral character education from, knee high to a grasshopper, right? Even before that in the womb, as we learned. But they weren't. Okay? And we should want to do all we can to make sure that they get it. Because it'll help make our world a better place. So it says you can get advice from those who are trustworthy, honest, and responsible for their actions. In other words, they have positive moral character and they set and achieve positive goals. Be smart and consider how your influences can impact your future. In the meantime, don't get frustrated if you can't decide what your purpose is or if you keep changing your mind. What is important is to always have a positive direction in which to focus your attention. As long as your goal, as long as your direction is going in a positive way and you're not bringing harm to yourself or anybody else in order to achieve your goals and your purpose, what you think your goals and your purpose are at that time, that's okay. But just keep going ahead, and eventually, you're going to find out what your ultimate goal actually is. So it says, in this way, when you're faced with peer pressure and other negative influences, you can have a reason to stop and think and evaluate how your choices will affect your future. If you don't have positive goals, if you don't have direction in life, you're going to be like a leaf on a windy day, blown in all directions, and people are going to be able to pull you in any direction. But if you have just these positive moral character traits as a goal, achieving, becoming the best person you can be, that's a goal. That's a positive goal, and you're not going to allow people to be pulling you here and there. You're going to stay on the straight and narrow. Okay, you're going to have the incentive to stay on the straight and narrow because you want to become the best person you can be, even if you don't know what your ultimate purpose is yet. As long as you have those positive goals in front of you and you keep that in the forefront of your mind, you're not going to let people sway you to do these negative things. Now it says, someone who wants to put a stop to world hunger won't get talked into abusing drugs or abusing alcohol that could impair his judgment and his ability to think clearly and make safe choices. Okay? That is, if they really want to put a stop to world hunger, if they really want to put a stop to drug abuse, if they really want to put a stop to animal abuse or, domestic violence and world wars or whatever, they're not gonna be able to do these things when they're abusing drugs and alcohol. And remember, at the bottom of the page 94, it says, winners are people with definite purpose in life. Winners are people with definite purpose in life. Okay, so let's turn back to LP 5D again, because we got to go over number 5 on LP 5D, where it says, remind students that in the last session they explored various aspects of conformity. Tell students that accepting negative standards can diminish their purpose in life. Stress that although we all need friends, we must be careful of the friends we choose and how we spend our time. And let's turn to page 95 to the section entitled Friends, Conformity, and Purpose. And on page 95 at the top, it says, once you have identified your purpose in life, don't stop there. You must also be focused on achieving it. This means being careful of how you spend your time alone or with your friends, as well as being aware of what you conform to. Remember, the real test of your moral character is, what you do when no one's watching. So, whether you're alone or whether you're with other people, whether you're at work or at play, you should always, be careful of how you're spending your time and your conduct, making sure it's according to what you're learning here in the Peaceful Solution. Without focus and determination, you can lose sight of the positive things you want from life. Okay? It does take, there's a lot of distractions, okay? There's a lot of things out there they're going to want to try to pull you in every direction. You've got the media, it's called the weapon of mass distraction, right? The television, the internet, video games. There's all kinds of foolishness to get into out there, okay? And it's all a distraction, If you really, you really got to be careful how you're spending your time because it's very hard to keep focused and determined with all those things around us, okay? And it's easy to get off track, okay? But if we find ourselves getting off track, as we learn in the Peaceful Solution, recognize, hey, I'm off track. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get back on track, right? You're the only one, we're the only one that can make that decision. There's not going to be somebody standing there motivating and encouraging us, to become, honest, respectful, all those things. Unless it's a Peaceful Solution, a fellow student or teacher, most people aren't going to be encouraging us in that direction. They're going to be encouraging us to go out to the movies, go play video games, go shoot paintball guns at one another and pretend we're at war. When actually what we're learning here is a peace, right? We're learning how to have peace. We're not learning how to war here, are we? Right? And I know that most people don't think that that's a big deal. They just think they're having fun and it's entertaining and it's something to do. But it's not something a Peaceful Solution character education student or instructor should be engaging in if they really want to turn this world around from war and fighting, right? I remember one time I was driving down the street in a suburb down south, and I seen these two children, one, they had guns in their hand, toy cap guns, and one was ducking behind the tree, and the other one was on the other side of the tree trying to shoot them. And this is how they spent their, this is what they did, their playtime. you know. And I know the parents that bought those cap guns, you know, they probably didn't think a thing about it when they went to Toys R Us and bought those, or Walmart, or wherever they got them from. But it's the end result of those things that you need to consider. You put a gun in a child's hand at an early age, he might pick up a real gun and decide to go to school and deal with some bullies. Or he might pick up a real gun when he's later in life and decide, you know, I'm going to go rob this bank, or I'm going to go shoot this person because I don't like the way they treated me. Got to be careful. Or he might want to go to war and use a gun against his fellow man. So think for a moment about what you spend your free time doing. Is it racing to the computer as soon as you get home to play the latest game, or is it watching hours and hours of TV, you know, entranced by the television set? Now it says, although there are TV shows that are positive and video games that appear harmless, the vast majority of these forms of entertainment are filled with illicit sex and violence. When your main sources of entertainment are TV and video games, you could begin to view violence as an acceptable way to handle anger. As for sex, based on what is seen on TV, it appears that everybody's doing it without any negative consequences. In real life, the consequences of having sex outside of marriage can result in STDs that can both affect you for the rest of your life and give you a bad reputation that could follow you for years to come, along with a negative self-image that could affect the way you relate to others and interact with others. Now, we're going to get into a serious discussion because we're all teachers here, right? We're students and teachers, learning to be teachers. We need to have a serious discussion about these STDs and this television. You know, how they're making everyone think there's no consequences for any of this stuff. We're going to show that there actually is, because that's what our job is. Our job is to educate in true moral character. We're not here to play, you know, to use flowery words and, you know, make everything seem like it's okay, that these things are okay and they're not bringing any damage to us mentally, physically, etc. This is destroying our society. It's an epidemic, STDs. And we're going to look at this. Let's go ahead and go to this first slide. It says, I just read, as for sex, based on what is seen on TV, it appears that everybody's doing it without any negative consequences. In real life, the consequences of having sex outside of marriage can result in these STDs, and they can affect you for the rest of your life. Okay, you need to remember that. These STDs are not just a nuisance. These are life-threatening diseases. Let's go to the next slide here. Now, if we were watching reality TV, if this was, you know, if they really showed you what these shows are really teaching, here's what your reality TV guide would look like tonight. At 7 o'clock, you could watch Robbery and Rape 101, because that's what they're teaching when they show all these crime shows. At 8 o'clock, you could watch, instead of Sex in the City, we'll call it STDs in the City, right? Because that's what these women are getting and these men are getting. This is reality TV. This is real reality TV. This isn't playtime here. This is real. Remember, this is the reality TV guide. At 9 o'clock, we can watch My Life at the Doctor Office, because that's where you're going to spend your life when you decide to go out and commit all these acts that are against the peaceful solution, like this illicit sex and violence that we're seeing on page 95. At 10 o'clock, we can watch How to Commit Murder and outwit the CSI experts. You know how they show on the crime scene investigation, you know, they show how they actually do an investigation. You can learn how they do it so you can go out and commit the perfect crime, right? Then at 11 o'clock, we'll watch the news featuring the real-life consequences of what we learned between 7 and 11 p.m. that day. Because that's really what you're seeing on the news. You're seeing what people are actually, they're actually breaking the peaceful solution, okay, in all of their actions on television, okay? The illicit sex, the violence, the way they handle their anger, the way they treat one another, etc. This is all leading to the STDs, the broken homes, the divorces, the child abuse, all the things that are plaguing our society today. Let's look at the next slide. We're going to get a little lesson tonight. Sexually transmitted diseases. Did I say that wrong? Let's go to the next slide. How do you pronounce these words on the left? Is it disorder and disrespect? Or is it disorder and disrespect? Which one? Do we say it with the S or the Z? So let's pronounce this word disease. They pronounce it, to throw you off, disease, like there's a Z in there somewhere. Do you see a Z in there? Okay, so then it shouldn't be disease, it should be dis-ease. Dis means no or not. Ease means calm or at peace. So if you're at dis-ease, you have no calm or peace, whether it's in the mind or in the body. Because remember, these STDs that we're going to be talking about here that are very real, they affect you mentally and physically. And if your mind's not working right, your body's not working right. And if your body's not working right, your mind's not going to work right. So they both have to be balanced and healthy. Now, this is the first deception they're throwing at you. They're making people think that that word's pronounced disease when it's actually dis-ease. So they're never going to figure it out. They're never going to figure out, how did this get into my body? How did I get this thing? How did I get this chlamydia or this gonorrhea or this syphilis or this HPV or this, whatever it is that I'm suffering right now? Why am I having these problems? Why did I have that heart attack? Oh, well, you're supposed to have a heart attack when you're 40 or 50. It's normal, huh? No, we're going to find out that's not the case. Let's go to the next slide. This is STDs are an epidemic. According to the CDC, the annual new infections in America, this was back in, by the way, 2008 was 20 million. Today it's 26 million. Sounds like their plan to bring STDs down is working great, right? The condoms that they're encouraging our children to use? Sounds like that's working out pretty great, isn't it? Or the testing, they're telling you, just go get your test. Make sure you get your test. We're going to talk about that. The total, this was in 2008, by the way. The total infections in 2008 were 110 million in America. That's 2008. How many years ago was that? Do your math. 13 years ago, it was 110 million. We have 330 million people in America today. With the moral character the way it is right now, how many more do you think have it today than had it 13 years ago? Do you think that number's gone up, or do you think that number's declined? Which one do you think? Yeah, you bet it's gone up. It's gone way up. We're going to see here in a minute. The total medical costs back in 2008 was $16 billion. That's on the American government. The cost that we have to pay as taxpayers, these STDs. Now, it says, this is 2016, it says, in 2016, more than 1 million STIs or sexually transmitted infections are acquired every day worldwide. In 2016, the World Health Organization estimated 376 million new infections with 1 of 4 STIs. Remember, this is 376 million new STIs, and this is only speaking of 4 of them. This is only speaking of chlamydia, which is 127 million, gonorrhea, 87 million, syphilis, 6.3 million, and trichomoniasis, 156 million worldwide. This is in 2016. And remember now, this is only people that go to the doctor. This is only people that go to a doctor and they do a test. Let's go to the next slide. Now this is a pamphlet. We're going to go over this pamphlet, okay? Because I told you, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, has a lot of influence on doctors, nurses, healthcare professional, school counselors, school administrators. Everything the CDC says, they pretty much go with that. Okay? Now, do you think those people that I just named have all taken the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program and they know the top character trait is getting educated? Like getting all the facts and making sure they're correct before you make a decision? Or do you just think they think, well, that's from the CDC. The CDC can't be wrong. The CDC, man, they're a major organization. They've got to be right. Right? Well, let's find out. Let's dissect this. This is a brochure. It's called The Lowdown on How to Prevent Sexually Transmitted Diseases. In other words, the lowdown means the facts. These are the facts, okay? We're going to break this down and we're going to see if this is actually true facts or false facts, okay? We're going to take it one step at a time. Let's go to the next slide. Their first suggestion, which is actually what the Peaceful Solution, well, partially what the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program teaches, is abstinence. Abstinence means you don't do something. Okay? And in this case, the surest way to avoid STDs is to not have sex, right? That's the surest way, because if I put a gun on a table, which I would never do, or a glass of poison, and I said, abstain from drinking this and you'll live, and you don't touch that glass and you don't drink that poison, are you going to be okay? Yeah. So abstinence works, right? Yeah, it works. If you truly abstain from it. But look at the picture you're looking at here. It says, the surest way to avoid STDs is to not have sex. Just hold hands with your partner and kiss them. Don't have sex. Really? Look at those pictures. These are kissing diseases. Herpes, gonorrhea, syphilis rash on the hands. Did you know that you can touch somebody's hand that has syphilis and you can catch syphilis? So that's the surest way not to get an STD. Just don't go all the way, just hold hands and just kiss. That's going to keep you safe. Look at the pictures. The pictures aren't lying. That's HIV rash on somebody's hand there on the bottom right. You know what HIV is? It's the virus that leads to the AIDS, or it's the one that leads to the AIDS virus. It's where your immune system gets destroyed, where a common cold could even kill you. These are coming from holding hands, or public toilet seats, or jumping in the swimming pool, which is just a big old, really just a big old witch's brew of who knows how many STDs are floating around in that. But it's got chlorine, you know. Chlorine kills all those things, doesn't it? No, go read up on it. Go read up on it. No, the chlorine's not killing all those viruses that are in the water that are floating around. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. I'm not trying to be too gruesome here. I'm just trying to show you this is reality. Okay, I told you this is reality. This is real pictures. And hat tip to Catan for giving me these pictures, because he actually gave us a class once on STDs in the Peaceful Solution program. And these were some of the ones that really just made me like, wow. That first picture is a young boy. Okay, he's not even 10 years old. How do you think he got that syphilis? That's congenital syphilis. That was passed on to him by somebody else that didn't practice a Peaceful Solution. Remember, the only way to bring a dis-ease into your body, remember, dis means not, ease means not at ease or not at peace. So if you're not at ease and not at peace, it means you didn't practice the Peaceful Solution in some form. And one of the forms that we're really pushing in the Peaceful Solution is do not practice this illicit sex. They're trying to make you think on TV that no one's getting harmed by it. No one's getting harmed. Look at that young man. Look at the man in the middle. He's got, I think it's stage 2 or stage 3 syphilis. Those are ulcerations in in his head from the syphilis. Look at the man on the right. That's a man whose nose is eaten from syphilis. These are real. Okay, this isn't this isn't Hollywood makeup or something like that. This is real cases. Not all of them are that extreme. I'm showing you how extreme it can be. Most of the time when you meet somebody with syphilis, you don't see this right here. So you get fooled into thinking, well, they're okay. I don't see anything on them. Well, half the time it's dark. You can't see anything anyway, can you? I think the reason they turn the lights out is they don't want to know what's there. That way they don't have to be conscious of what disease they're getting, right? Let's go to the next slide. In 2019, an estimated 34,800 new HIV infections occurred in the U.S. alone. That's according to U.S. statistics at hiv.gov. We got that under control, right? The HIV, it's under control? You think so? Well, they try to make you think so, don't they? They try to make out like everything's going great out there, Because you don't see anybody on TV getting the HIV when they go out and do these things on TV, do you? Do you see any of these people going to the doctor and getting diagnosed with HIV on television? For the most part, no, unless it's a documentary about somebody that actually got HIV. But I remember recently they made a movie about a man, Freddie Mercury. He was a singer for a rock band named Queen, very popular when I was growing up. We found out, I was probably about 17 or 18 when I found out he had AIDS, and I was shocked. The man went from, he looked normal and healthy to as skinny as a rail. And he was immobile. And then he was dead. Before we knew it, he was dead. And they made a movie about him recently. And you know what? They could have used it to educate people and tell them, hey, Freddie Mercury made some bad decisions in his life. He did some things he shouldn't have done that led to this disease here. But you know what? They didn't do that. What they did is they glorified it. They made it look like everything he did in his life was super and it was great. They had an opportunity to educate and they didn't use it. Okay, so we'll use it. How's that? We'll use it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here's some other tips they give you. There's a couple tips here. It says, have fewer partners. Wow. Really? So isn't that kind of like cutting down on crack cocaine? Instead of having, 10 grams this week, I guess I'll have 5. That's going to help, right? Aren't you still getting sick? Aren't you still taking in the disease into your body? What if you only had one partner? What if you only had one person a week? You went to the bar and picked up one person a week, or you went to school and picked up one girl a week and had her over the weekend. What if you only had one? What did we just see on the statistics? Isn't that kind of like playing Russian roulette? Isn't that kind of like risk-taking behavior, as we call it? I would say. It says, agree to only have sex with one person who agrees to only have sex with you. Well, that's going to work, right? My Boy Scout honor, I'm only going to have sex with you. Let's agree. Okay, I agree. Really? They're going to agree and they haven't learned the Peaceful Solution Character Education program that talks about honesty and keeping your promises? Remember, there's a 70% divorce rate in America. That means that people give promises and they don't keep them, right? So you're going to trust that? Okay, I only agree to have sex with you. But what if they already have an STD? It says, make sure you both get tested to know for sure that neither of you has an STD. This is one of the most reliable ways to avoid STDs. Think about this. Think about what I'm reading and think about the statistics, and you make that determination right there. It also says, talk with your partner. Talk with your sex partner about STDs and staying safe before having sex. Sure. That's what you do, right? That's normal. Folks, this isn't even real. You're going to sit there and talk to somebody about, here's a conversation they're having. Here's a couple conversation bubbles. Let's both get tested together. Yeah, why take a chance when we can know for sure? Really, in the heat of the moment, you're going to do that, right? When you're both just raring to go with each other, you're going to decide, yeah, let's go ahead. Why take a chance? Let's go down to the clinic on Monday morning. Let's get tested first. Really, folks, this is not reality. I lived in reality at one time. Okay, this is not even reality. This is fantasy. Okay, and nobody's doing this. Okay, nobody's doing this. Let's go to the next slide. Here's another tip. Well, another statistic says every year there's an estimated 20 million new STD infections in the U.S. It's up to 26 million now. But the good news is you can use condoms. Really? Okay, let's talk about that. It says using a condom correctly every time you have sex can help you avoid STDs. Now, you see that Trojan down there? That's a condom. It's a condom wrapper. Trojan is probably one of the most popular brands. You know, you can get it at the 7-Eleven. Usually they have to lock them up because everybody's trying to get to them. A lot of people are trying to get to them, but there's a reason they call it a Trojan. It's a Trojan horse. It's a lie. It's a deception to make you feel safe and protected. But really, hiding in that horse, you remember the story of the horse in Troy, how the Grecian army, you know, they made out, they left that horse outside the walls of the city of Troy, and they acted like they were retreating, and they left, and they got on their ships and acted like they were leaving. And that night, the people of the city of Troy, they pulled the horse in. Look what they left us. Look at this nice gift they gave us. And then the Greeks snuck back in because inside that horse was 30 warriors because remember that they had walls around that city. They were trying to keep this Grecian army from getting in, but the soldiers snuck in on that horse. There's a reason why this is called a Trojan condom. It's a Trojan horse. It's a lie. It's a deception. It's another one of these tricks that they're trying to use to try to make you think everybody's doing it and everybody's going to be safe. Let's see what the doctors are warning about these condoms. Let's read a couple of their comments. It says, condom warnings, beware. Doctors speak out about condom failures. It says, many leading health experts have warned against depending on condoms for protection against AIDS and other STDs. Here's a sampling of their comments. I'm going to read the second one here. It says, simply put, condoms fail. And condoms fail at a rate unacceptable for me as a physician to endorse them as a strategy to promote it as meaningful AIDS protection. And that was from Robert Renfield, the chief of retroviral research at Walter Reed Army Institute. Here's another quote. Relying on condoms for protection can mean lifelong disease, suffering, and even death for you or someone you love. That's a quote from Andre Lafrance, a Canadian physician and researcher. Here's another quote. Saying that the use of condoms is safe sex is in fact playing Russian roulette. A lot of people will die in this dangerous game. That's a quote from Dr. Teresa Crenshaw, a member of the U.S. Presidential AIDS Commission and past president of the American Association of Sex Educators. And this article is at prolife.com. Go and read it for yourself. Get educated. These are doctors that are telling you, okay, condoms are plastic. Plastic is porous. That means it has tiny, tiny, tiny little holes. Okay? It's not even safe to drink out of a plastic bottle for very long because they're porous and they trap, germs and viruses inside of them. Okay? Now, did you know that the AIDS virus is so tiny that it can actually go through a condom as easily as a ping pong ball would go through a basketball hoop if you threw it in? And that's safety? Protection? Really? Well, see, you ought to give a hand to these doctors right here that were willing to stand up and come out and say what the truth is about these condoms. I'll give them a hand. Great for them. Great for them. Apparently, they weren't getting their money from, certain organizations like Planned Parenthood and others, right? Let's go to the next slide. Now, here's another one of their ideas you can from the CDC. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Now, the vaccination they're talking about, it says the most common STD can be prevented by a vaccine. The HPV vaccine is safe, effective, and can help you avoid HPV-related health problems like genital warts and some cancers. Oh, cancer? We can get cancer from STDs? I thought cancer wasn't contagious. Oh, yes, it is. And there's some forms of cancer I can't talk about because this is somewhat a family-friendly show. In certain parts of the body that you get cancer from doing these acts that the Peaceful Solution's warning you about right here. But let's talk about some of these. It says, who should get the HPV vaccine? Routine vaccination for boys and girls ages 11 to 12. Huh? 11? Why are we encouraging little girls to do these kind of things here? You know, because you know what's going to take place? If you give that girl that HPV vaccine, she's going to think she's Wonder Woman now. I got my vaccination. I can go out and sleep with all the boys at school. I'm going to be safe. I'm protected. I got a vaccination. You think children even have a clue about this? This is only talking about HPV, human papillomavirus. Now listen to this. This is from the CDC about human papillomavirus. Listen to this. Because they made it sound like that vaccine is going to be the cure-all, you know. In fact, the HPV vaccine doesn't even work if you already have HPV. They say it's only to help prevent certain strains of HPV. But notice what they say. What does a vaccine not protect against? The vaccine does not protect against all HPV types. So they will not prevent all cases of cervical cancer. Oh? So you're still going to get cervical cancer in some form, huh? But you think you're safe because you gave your 11-year-old daughter Gardasil. Did you know here in the state of Texas a few years back they were trying to make it mandatory for all the little girls in all the public schools here to get a Gardasil shot at the age of 11? Until it was found out that the governor that was promoting them at the time had an investment, or actually he was getting campaign contributions from the makers of Gardasil. So they scrapped the idea. It says some cervical cancers will not be prevented by the vaccine. It will be important for women to continue getting screened for cervical cancer. Also, the vaccine does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections. So it will still be important for sexually active persons to lower their risk for other STIs. In other words, HPV is only one of 125 STDs out there. So you're still going to have to go get tested for all the 124 others, right? But you got your vaccination card. You're safe. That's what children think. They don't know what I just read you. And most parents don't even know what I just read you. So is that going to work? Okay, I don't think so. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about chlamydia, another STD. It's one of the most common STDs. It's known as a silent disease because although it often has no outward symptoms, it can cause major internal damage, like heart attacks and strokes. Did you know that chlamydia is actually called the heart attack disease? It gets in your arteries and it does damage, clots up your arteries, and you have a heart attack. Oh, but I thought you just had a heart attack because you were 40 or 50 or 60 and it was normal. No, it's an STD. It's an STD. Why aren't they telling us that? Well, they do tell you that after you have your first heart attack. They let you know, hey, by the way, you probably want to cut down on the women or the men. Well, wait a minute. Why didn't they tell me that before I had my first heart attack? Well, there's no money in that. To be blunt. There's a book out there by Sandeep Gupta and John Cam called Chronic Infection, Chlamydia, and Coronary Heart Disease. You can look into that if you'd like to learn more about it. It also leads Oh, it's treatable, by the way. Chlamydia is treatable with antibiotics. Treatable means they can manage it to make you feel a little more comfortable, but there's no cure for any of these, okay? And it can cause pelvic inflammatory disease, or PID, in women and lead to sterility in men. That means you can't have children. Pelvic inflammatory disease, according to CDC.gov, it causes formation of scar tissue both outside and inside the fallopian tubes that can lead to tubal blockage. Fallopian tubes are very important in the generation of children in women, right? Listen, be very careful to listen to what this is telling you. Right now, you might not think your purpose in life is to be a mother. You might think, I don't want to be a mom. I want to have fun all my life. I don't want to have children. Well, you know what? Values, goals change, purposes change, and it's going to change as you get older, and you're going to want to have children. But you might mess your body up so bad because of this, you won't be able to. It says, ectopic pregnancy, or pregnancy outside the womb, is something it leads to as well. Pregnancy outside the womb? Who do you think is going to suffer from that? The baby, right? And the mother. Infertility, which is inability to get pregnant, and it also leads to long-term pelvic and abdominal pain. Pain, suffering, dis-ease. Remember the word dis-ease? Dis. No or not. And ease. Peace or calm. Not at peace, not at calm, because we broke peaceful solution principles about practicing self-control, not going for the immediate gratification, waiting, being patient, being respectful to that woman, being respectful to that man, showing true love for that person. Not just telling him, I love you, I got to go to sleep with you tonight. I got to have you right now because I love you so much. Folks, that's not love. Look what I'm showing you. Look what the facts are showing. This isn't love. This isn't the peaceful solution. This isn't going to lead to peace. It's going to lead to sickness, suffering, and eventually death. Let's go to the next slide. Here's another thing they tell you can do. Get tested. Well, that's working out pretty well, isn't it? So you go to get your test at the health clinic, right? All right. Well, what if they tell you got syphilis? All right. Well, you got your test. Did that help? Well, it helped you in knowing that we got. Is there a cure for syphilis? No, there's not. And remember, we were talking about purpose and goals and dreams that people have, that what they want to become. This is a serious, serious setback right here. You know, this is a real story. I had a man call me one time. He didn't know much about the peaceful solution, apparently, because you know what he told me? He said he went to the clinic. He was so ecstatic. I mean, he was really, really worried. And I still see, sometimes I go to his Facebook and I see he's still going and getting tested for different things because, he messes around a lot. And so he goes and gets tested ever so often at the clinic. Well, he called me one day and he was super excited. He goes, man, I'm so relieved, man. He goes, I found out I don't have HIV. I only have syphilis. I was like, what? Does this man know what syphilis is? Apparently not. Syphilis does a lot of damage. You saw the pictures there. It goes to your brain. It can kill you. It destroys your mind. It's degenerative. It's degenerating your body and your mind, your mental health. That's not something to be glad about. What we should have been excited about is not having anything at all. Right? But the only way that's going to take place is true abstinence. That means staying away from it and practicing what you learn in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. That's where they went wrong here in the state of Texas. They wanted to institute the abstinence program, President Bush, George Bush Jr. But the problem was they didn't keep it abstinence only. What they did is they didn't teach them about self-control and all the things you learn in the Peaceful Solution. which would have strengthened their minds and their determination not to get involved in these things. It would have helped if they would have done that, but they didn't do that. They told them, okay, abstain from sex, children, but if you have to have sex, use condoms, okay? Be safe. That's what they told them. And what do you think children are going to do when you give them the choice between abstinence and a condom? When they don't have any education that you're learning here, what do you think they're going to choose? They're going to take the easy way. Now, the CDC, get this, adolescents, listen to me, 15, if you're between the ages of 15 and 24, the CDC estimates that youth ages 15 to 24 account for almost half of the 26 million new STDs that occur in the U.S. in 2018. Half of 26 million is 13 million. There's only 37,484,750 children between the ages of 15 and 24, or young people between the ages of 15 and 24 in the United States. That means 1 out of 3 of them, more than 1 out of 3 that they know about, have an STD. So if you're a teenager, you better be paying really close attention to this right here. You better really be paying very close attention right here. Because that right there is a scary, that's risk-taking. That's like jumping in a pool of sharks. That's like walking blindfold across I-20, Interstate 20 at 5 o'clock traffic, hoping you don't get hit. Do you think children know any of this? Of course they don't. I know they don't, because people are coming to their schools and they're telling them stories, and they're bringing condoms and they're showing them, just use this condom and you're going to be safe. And the children, they believe the adults. They believe the adults. They're taught to believe the adults. They're taught to trust authority. But the problem is the authorities haven't been taught the Peaceful Solution Character Education program like you're being taught. So they don't have all the facts. They don't gather all the information and get all the facts to make sure it's correct before they disseminate information. Let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, there is no next slide. Okay, don't go to the next slide. So, with that information, just that little bit of information, because I got to hold back. I'm here with, I got young people, I got, women watching, young girls watching. We can't talk about certain things in the Peaceful Solution when we have boys and girls together. That's another mistake they make in the public school system and other places. They have what they call, I remember when I was growing up, they had certain sex education classes at school. And they came to the school and they did things in front of the children, grown adults. And a lot of times it was a man and a woman that were doing the presentation together. And they were actually showing children things that children shouldn't even be seeing at that age. I was reading recently in Houston, Texas, because they don't understand tolerance. They don't understand. Remember, we've been learning about tolerance, haven't we? We were taught about tolerance in the Peaceful Solution, about acceptance. We're learning about acceptance and tolerating people. They're not learning about that. So they have a different idea of what tolerance means. They think tolerance means that you should agree with everything people are doing. No. We can disagree if someone's doing something that's against the Peaceful Solution. We should not agree with that. Now, we shouldn't disrespect the person that's doing it. We should be willing to educate them, because you're going to win more honey with flies than vinegar, right? Is that how it goes? Fool me once, don't fool me again. Something like that. No, you're going to win more flies with honey than vinegar, I guess. You're not going to, you got to educate people. You got to teach them. In Houston, Texas, they have what's called Drag Queen Storytime Hour in the schools with elementary school students that are only, 6, 7, 8 years old, little kindergartners. They have drag queens come in and read to the children because they want to teach the children tolerance. They found out, when I say drag queen, I'm talking about men that dress like women and they're not even dressed a lot of times. They're not dressed properly. And they're in there reading books to little children. And they found out that some of them were child molesters. One of them was a convicted murderer. The parents were like, what are you doing? You're putting my children in danger here. Other parents were saying, oh, I want my children to be accepting of other people. Well, we want people to accept other people too. We don't want to disrespect anybody either. We want to be tolerant toward everybody too. But that doesn't mean we have to agree with behavior that's illicit sexual behavior. We don't have to agree with that, and we're not going to agree with that in the peaceful solution. What we're going to do is we're going to educate other people. What we're going to do is we're going to educate other people to try to get them to see what they weren't told about what they're doing. Because they're not being shown both sides of the coin. They're only being told they can do it. They're not being told what comes from doing it. That's where the peaceful solution comes in, and that's why as educators we have to know the facts. We got to gather all the information. And again, I didn't even scratch the surface of what could be talked about here, just on the STDs. And remember what they're saying. Go back to page 90. Well, don't go back. We'll just go back to the slide, the very first slide. Show that very first slide one more time. Let's ingrain this in our mind. Okay? It says they're trying to make it appear that everybody's doing it on TV. Question, is everybody doing it? We're not doing it, are we? Oh, great. So everybody's not doing it, right? Hey, how about that? So there's another fact we just established a fact that not everybody's doing it, right? So when they say, well, everybody's doing it anyway, that's not true. Not everybody's doing it. I know a lot of people that aren't doing it. All over the world, they're not doing it. There's a lot of people that are following the peaceful solution that aren't doing it because they know what comes from it. They got educated about it. Without any negative consequences. Without any diseases. Remember that word disease. Let's go to that slide. I'm going to leave you with that. Let's go to that word disease. Let's pronounce it correctly, okay? Let's not say disease anymore. Quit throwing everyone off. Pronounce things properly. You say disorder, you say disrespect, so say disease, right? So everyone will figure this out. That's what we're all about in the peaceful solution. We're about educating people. We're about turning people away from guarding them and keeping them from falling into these traps. Remember, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. It's power to stay healthy, to stay safe, and to keep everyone else around you safe. Okay? And that's your job. That's our job as educators. So that's all the time I have for this evening. And I want to encourage you, the next class is on, 1024? Be 1024. Sunday, 1024 at 5:30 p.m. Please don't miss this next class. Sunday, 1024, 5:30 p.m. You've been a great group. Keep tuning in and keep practicing the peaceful solution.